Hello and welcome to the Timberpad Pro tutorial series. This is video number 3, in which we will be working with the tally tab and adding data to our first plot. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody I'm using an emulator here. Some of the behavior that you see with the software is not normal and you shouldn't be seeing that on your devices. So let's get started. This is the plot 1 tree 1 that we added in the previous video. And for this purpose, I'm using a 15 BAF prism, and I'm going to add my first tree. So with the species, I can select a numeric value from this drop-down list. These are the tall timber defaults. And you can find the species that are associated with these numbers in the Tools tab. You can use the back button on your device to get out of that. The alternative is to put in your own values, whether you have numeric values that you have memorized or you have alpha codes that you would like to use. So my first tree is a red spruce, and I'm going to use a 2-letter alpha code. Just something to keep in mind, you can only put in 2-character codes in this species box and expect them to work in tall timber. The next thing that we can do is change the diameter of the tree. So this large red button here, it's quick and easy to hit with your thumb while you're in the field. We'll give that a press and put in a 9 for diameter. I can use decimal values here as well if I'd like to. And moving on from there, we'll go into product. Product is another of those large red buttons. And when I click on this, I'm going to select for each digit an 8-foot section of the tree and the product that is associated with that. So for example, a 1 corresponds to a veneer log, 2 corresponds to a saw log product. In this case, with this red spruce that's 9 inches, I'm going to say there are 2 saw log products and 2 pulp products, for a total merchantable length of 32 feet. That's 16 feet of sawlog and 16 feet of pulp. Now, just for reference, that means the merchantable height of the tree is 33 feet, which is accounting for 32 feet of product and 1 foot of stump. We can click OK to exit the product. Adding a note is optional here. Changing the top value. The default is going to be 4 inches, and I can leave that at 4, or I can change that for a different value that is the top of my merchantable called sections. Or I can set that to 0, and if I'm using tall timber, that will estimate a top diameter for me at the end of my merchantable products. Down here, I have acceptable and unacceptable growing stock, as well as C and L, which may mean cut and leave, or crop tree and legacy tree. Whatever you use these for, it's like many other options. It is up to you as long as you're consistent about it. If you're putting this into tall timber, leaving that blank is an option. In this case, I'm going to select A for acceptable growing stock on this tree. And because it's the only one of its exact kind on this plot, I'm going to leave the repetitions box at 1. If I had multiple of a tree, for example, if I was doing a regeneration tally, whether it was fixed or variable radius, I could select a multiple repetitions option if, for example, I had several 1-inch balsam fir in my fixed radius plot. I'll click the back button to get out of that option box. So as I'd mentioned in the previous video, to get your information into tall timber, the bare bones basic is to have a species, a diameter, a product, and to set the top to 0 and leave this blank. Repetitions will always be at least 1. And that is sufficient data to get your information into tall timber. If you want to collect more or less data, that's your option. Changing the warnings to off in the setup tab will allow you to enter less than the recommended options here as the species, diameter, and product. For example, if you only wanted to collect species and diameter, having the warnings off would allow you to do so. That being said, for the time being, we're going to stick with the procedure that we have now, and I'm going to use a tree duplicate button here to add another red spruce. So in the last one, you may have noticed after I entered my diameter, this tree is going to be 10 inches. The next box that I click on, a little gray box will pop up down here. and that's going to have the horizontal limiting distance for my 15 BAF prism and the slope that I have set, which I have it left at 0%. So if I click on the product box here, watch for that little pop-up. So about 22.5 feet for a 10-inch diameter tree, 15 BAF, and 0% slope. That should stay up a little bit longer on your devices, but I'll show you in a moment a way to keep that popping up again as you need it. So before we go there, let's just change this product. This spruce is a little bigger, and it has 3 saw log sections and 2 pulp sections for an overall merchantable length of 40 feet. I'll click OK. So if I want to get that horizontal limiting distance to pop up again, I can either click in the DBH box and click somewhere else, or I can quickly simplify the process by pressing the HLD button. Now the horizontal limiting distance will pop up for several seconds. And this is your course of action if you have the warnings turned off, because the pop-up will not automatically appear when you press the DBH button with the warnings turned off. So press that and it's at your fingertips ready to go. We'll work on changing the values within the limiting distance calculation in the next video within the Tools tab. So now that I have these data in the form, I'm going to leave the top value at 4 inches, and I'm going to call this an acceptable growing stock tree. So let's skip a few trees on this plot and move to our next plot, which will be a 0 tally. I'm going to click the Plot Plus button, and in the drop-down list, next to Species, I can select the 0 tally option. Now that will have a few default values that pop in. That will be 5 inches diameter, a 7 for product, which corresponds with a cull value, and an AU for unacceptable growing stock. So these are just placeholder values, something that you should expect to pop into the form every time you select a 0 tally plot. So let's just add one more plot, and I'll show you that these values are going to update in the form. So our spruce have the diameters and products input. We have the product 7 for the 0 tally plot, and as we add values for our next plot, we will get those values popping up each time we select a new section of the form. So that was the data input for the Tally tab. Next we'll be moving on to the Tools tab. That's clicking up in the right-hand section of the form here and selecting the new tab. Please stay tuned for the Tools video. Thanks for watching.